My coffee's gone cold, but thou shalt not waste. Got the animal cups out. Hi, my name is Alana. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And on this channel, we review books. And today's book review. Where's the book? Today's book review is a book that I read. I can't even remember when I read it. I read it sometime, I think maybe in the first half of 2023. At the latest, maybe June or July, but it was in the first half of 2023. If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler by Italo Calvino. I was intimidated to review this book because, side note, this background today, I couldn't get the tripod and all this stuff super lined up and straight. I didn't care. I don't care. This is the least of my worries, is making sure that the lines in the back are perfectly straight. It's just a minor problem to me. I got real problems going on in my life. So it is, you get what you get. But this book I read quite some time ago. And I had to wait till I was in the mood to review it because I knew there was going to be a lot of ground to cover. And this book is something, but it's a very unique piece of literature. Another sip of coffee. Okay. Coffee is keeping me afloat right now. That and the Lord. Let's dive in, because this book, I think, has a lot of topics and themes in it that most people, especially most readers, like to read about. So, watch out, reader. Here, everything is different from what it seems. Everything is two-faced. So, if on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, which, by the way, I hate saying the title. It is a mouthful. by Calvino, is a novel that's actually comprised of 10 novels, but together they frame a larger narrative. So we have a male and a female who go down, and they're kind of love interests. There's definitely some chemistry there. They go down a rabbit hole to try to piece these narratives together. So both of them are readers. They're both very different types of readers. And they just purchased a new novel from an author, and they realize that something with this novel is not quite right. The narrative drops off, and then it switches to a new narrative. And so then they're trying to figure out, where's the missing narrative to the original story that I was reading? And so they're trying to figure out how to piece all of this together. And then they start to question what it means to be a reader. They question, especially the male character in particular, the motives of authors and the publishing industry, and ultimately the tyranny that comes when entities have the power to control narratives. Oh, okay. Don't cry in contacts. It just ends up, you just end up with blurry contacts for the rest of the day. Don't do that. Anyone who is the least bit bookish will foam at the mouth at some of the passages that Calvino pays the way that they'll foam at the mouth at the way that Calvino pays homage to the reader and the joy of books. And the beginning of this novel just hits the nail on the head and describes how reading is really a full body experience. The books you've been planning to read for ages, the books you've been hunting for ages without success, the books dealing with something you've been working on at the moment, the books you want to own so they'll be handy just in case, the books you could put aside maybe to read this summer, the books you need to go with other books on your shelves, the books that fill you with sudden inexplicable curiosity not easily justified. You derive a special pleasure from a just published book, and it isn't only a book you are taking with you, but its novelty as well. No, you hope always to encounter true newness, which, having been new once, will continue to be so. You will take possession of the newness at the first moment without having to pursue it, to chase it. Will it happen this time? You never can tell. And so it's just this joy of reading, this joy of discovering new narratives, new novels, and new books are being published every day. And so some of that novelty for readers never, I don't think really ever wears off, because there's always the joy of the newly published, even with classics. That's how these companies are able to keep us buying classics that have been around for hundreds of years. They put pretty covers on them. How many copies of Jane Eyre do I need to own? I don't need 5 copies, but I have 5 copies. In my defense, one of them was given to me, but I still purchased 4. So anyway, so having set 10 novels within a novel, Calvino himself is challenging the conventional novel. This is not a linear narrative, though there are overarching themes, and there is a plot. I put it in quotations because, again, it's a bit abstract, but there is a similar vein there, a similar thread that's kind of running throughout the whole narrative. Because you do have these two characters trying to weave together a narrative from 10, Calvino is forcing the reader to ask, what makes a novel a novel? What happens when a narrative breaks away from the traditional structure? How can novels be reconfigured? You prepare to recognize the unmistakable tone of the author. No, you don't recognize it at all. But now that you think about it, whoever said this author had an unmistakable tone? On the contrary, he is known as an author who changes greatly from one book to the next. And so in this particular quote, I pulled it because authors do have the authority to be able to change their tone and keep the reader on their toes, because they may switch it up from novel to novel. Some authors do have an unmistakable tone. Hemingway has a very distinct way in which that he writes. But there are some authors, each book feels different. I'm trying to think of an author like that, where each book may feel different that I've read. Where each novel is its own entity. And you're like, oh, is this the same person? I don't know. I'm trying to think of one. Amor Towles, all of his novels are very different, but it's still distinctly Towles, so I don't think that's a good example. I'll marinate on that and maybe come back to it. It just shows how we can, as readers, we get stuck in comfort zones with authors. And so we think authors have mistakable tones, but even the author can switch up on you because they can. They need to experiment with their craft as well. They want problems to debate, general ideas to connect with other general ideas. My colleagues follow the mainstream. Calvino, which is right up my alley, spends a lot of time critiquing the publishing industry, and just how basically what gets published is what people want to consume. Doesn't mean it's actually good. Within this challenge of the conventional novel, let me go back, because that's how you get a conventional novel. That's how you get stuff that's comfortable, narratives that are the same, because publishing knows what people want to read, and those things that are outside of that comfort zone, those things that are going to make you rethink the novel, or maybe rethink society in some ways, challenge the mainstream, those might not get pushed to the forefront as much. Think about it. When experimental novels come out, they were often before their time, and they got critiqued a lot. And it wasn't over until, time passed that they were fully appreciated. So within this challenge of the conventional novel, Calvino uses this meandering narrative to prove his own point that a fluid narrative is one that is inherently deviant. And so when it doesn't follow the rules and breaks away from what is expected and accepted, those narratives cause a problem. So again, there's a greater overtone here about challenging the mainstream as well. All these oblique lines intersecting should define the space where we moved. I and Valerian and Irina, two of the other characters, where our story can emerge from nothingness, find a point of departure, a direction, a plot. The story must also work hard to keep up with us, to report a dialogue constructed in the void, speech by speech. For the story, the bridge is not finished. Beneath every word, there is nothingness. I'm out of it today, which is why I feel like I'm all over the place and a little antsy. Fidgeting a lot. And I had a rough morning. I'm not even gonna lie. Diving deeper into this idea that narratives are to be challenged, Calvino uses this disorienting novel in If on a Winter's Night a Traveler to reveal how authors have some control, but they are still incredibly limited. based on how they're interpreted by the reader and how they're also a product to be consumed, and also by the publishing industry. The publishing industry plays a critical role in what gets consumed, often with ulterior motives. Again, something that I'm going to kind of touch on in the last bit. I have a lot of quotes here, and I'm just going to rapid fire read them. Well, not rapid fire. I think I have 4 or 5 here. I'm going to read them all. I usually don't use this many quotes to portray one point of view, or one theme, but they were so good. I couldn't stop myself. Let's get the alpaca. This is actually a llama. Llamas have pointier ears than alpacas. Coffee is slapping. Even cold, it slaps. Before I get into these quotes, I had actually stopped drinking coffee for 7 years. From 2013 to 2020, to February of 2020, I had actually cut coffee completely out of my diet. Because in my college years, playa, I had such a high tolerance for caffeine that I could go to Starbucks or whatever. Like, I say Starbucks because where I lived at school, I was literally right behind the Starbucks. And in that area where I used to live, the Starbucks up there were popping. Okay, they were really good. And I'm no Starbucks fan, but and you could use your meal card for the school at the Starbucks. So I took advantage of that, and I was able to have like a cappuccino and go straight to sleep. I can't do that anymore, but I missed the flavor of coffee so much. I'm one of those people. Yes, I drink coffee for the caffeine, but I also drink it because I adore the flavor. It's so good. The stronger the better, but I couldn't stay away for too long. Let's get into these 5 quotes that I all felt were so good I had to throw them in here. All the more elusive, since for Ludmilla, authors are never incarcerated individuals or flesh and blood. They only exist for her in published pages. So this is his love interest, and she is a different type of reader. She compartmentalizes, so she separates the art from the artist. She's one of those readers, and she doesn't want to know about the author because she feels like it will taint the reading experience. The people from whom I am to retrieve instructions, or rather, let's come right out and say it, take orders, it is obvious that I am a subordinate, that I am doing a job, a pawn in every complicated game, a little cog in a gear, in a huge gear. That quote actually applies to the reader and to the author. There's a boundary line. On one side are those who make books. On the other, those who read them. I wanted to remain one of those who read them, so I take care always to remain on my side of the line. Otherwise, the unsullied pleasure of reading ends, or at least transformed into something else. The world of those who deal with books professionally is more and more crowded and tends to become one with the world of readers. This quote I thought was so appropriate for the way that social media in particular has changed reading and the publishing industry and the marketing of books. This book was published, I want to say, in the 70s. Late 70s. I'm also sniffling like crazy. It is February 10th, and I have to remind myself that it's actually allergy season where I am. 1979. I was right. Okay. There's no way Calvino, nobody knew. But who would have imagined that social media would turn into what it has? And now we have publishers being able to build relationships directly with a different reader. Publicity companies are able to build direct relationships with readers. Authors are able to connect immediately with readers because of social media. There are pros and cons to this because now I feel like authors are under even more scrutiny, but also authors have more and more access immediately to negative reviews. It would be a great topic for another day. And I think there's even this pressure for readers to more pressure for them to be less honest in their reviews because they're directly dealing with the publishers. They're directly dealing with authors, myself included. I am followed by some major publishing houses on Instagram. And I don't mean to say this, I'm not bragging, nothing like that, but it is a fact. I could pull it up right now. I'm followed by like Penguin Random House. HarperCollins has sent me stuff. I've worked with K Publicity, and I have a friendship with one of the women at K Publicity because of books, and she recommends books to me that she knows I'm gonna like. The author of the Wolfden trilogy, Elodie Harper, we follow each other on Instagram. She's commented on my reviews. She likes my stuff. I like her stuff. The line has blurred. Granted, I am going to review things as honest. I'm going to review things honestly. And there was actually a publicity company, I won't say who, and to be honest, I can't remember the name now, sent me a book and I gave it a mediocre review. I critiqued it honestly. She unfollowed me after that. She was an independent publicity company, but the author of it thanked me for the review. She was like, thank you for your honest opinion. But the publicity company, those are two different things. She unfollowed me, which that didn't hurt my feelings. That means I'm just not the reviewer for you. I'm going to be honest. But it is strange. It does put a pressure, I think, on the readers and the authors. The readers and the authors the most. It's this weird line. I see why somebody like Elena Ferrante, even prior to social media being what it is, would want to remain anonymous and have a pen name, because it is brutal out here in these streets. Let's keep going. I've got two more really good quotes. The self-realization on paper is sought not so much by isolated individuals, but as collectives, study seminars, working parties, research teams, as if intellectual labor were too dismaying to be faced alone. The figure of the author has become plural and moves always in a group because nobody can be delegated to represent anybody. This brother about to take me to church. Where's my organ? This quote really nails how difficult it is for the author to remain authentic when you have people reading your work and interpreting it. Readers are my vampires. I feel that what I am writing does not belong to me anymore. So lastly, as the two main characters and readers are weaving through these shifting narratives, Calvino opens up a conversation about control. When the narrative is able to shift because it's being controlled by outside forces and entities like government/police, states, the publishing companies may be controlled by certain entities as well. The readers are left scrambling because narratives are shifting. Or what's only considered the appropriate narrative is what's going to get pushed. This is also clearly an analogy for what happens when, of course, government and other powerful agencies seek to gain control of populations and maintain the upper hand by controlling narratives and information. Because the book/art space/music space, though I consider books and writing a form of art, writing is very difficult. So the arts, dance, music, as in dance, music, the visual arts, as in like painting, and dance is a visual art, but you know what I mean. But I'm talking about like sculpture work, paintings, and books. This is why there have always been spaces that have always been more, what's the word? I'm trying to keep it unpolitical because it can go either way, where people this is the space in which I'm going to challenge society. I'm going to challenge religion. I'm going to challenge the government. I'm going to challenge certain norms. That space, the art space, has always been radical. Not radical, that's not the word I want to look for, because that word is not always accurate. It's always been cutting edge. I'll say that. It's always been able to push the envelope, which is why government agencies and other entities want to control the art space, what is and what is considered acceptable art. And you see in police states, they control art. Let's read these three quotes that just hit the nail over the head so I don't ramble. Once the process of falsification is set in motion, it won't stop. The result is that nobody can be sure what is true and what is false. It's too soon to say. We have to see who can best exploit the falsifications. Don't fear that we want to force you to assist us in our censorship work. Modern technology will soon put us in a position to perform those tests with rapidity and efficiency. We have machines capable of reading, analyzing, judging any written text. Nobody these days holds the written word in such high esteem as police states do. Every regime, even the most authoritarian, survives in a situation of unstable equilibrium, whereby it needs to justify constantly the existence of its repressive apparatus, therefore of something to repress. This is where I'm going to wrap up this review. If On a Winter's Night a Traveler is one of the most unique novels I've read, it is a strange novel. Not going to lie, it is a challenging novel to read because it is always shifting and it's abstract. It can be disorienting. It can be disorienting, but that is the point. It's beautifully written. Like, this is a translated work because it was initially, of course, written in the Italian, but whoever translated this, chef's kiss, because I had to remind myself I was reading a translated work. It can be a jolting reading experience because you're also starting as a reader. If you hear that, my neighbor has construction going on next door at his house, so we'll keep pushing through. But you as the reader, you're getting invested in these different narratives, and then it shifts right when you're reaching like the best part. And so he does all of that on purpose. This is a smart novel. It's brilliant, but it will require the reader to have some patience and you feel just like these two main characters who are trying to desperately and relentlessly piece everything together and make sense of it all. And of course, I'm all about these types of themes. I'm always one to talk about control. I'm very intrigued by Calvino. This is my first Calvino novel. When I read this book at the beginning of earlier in the first half of the year, I remember I was in my Instagram stories, and when I asked my bookish friends which Calvino I should start with, it was this one. And so here I'm looking at my written review. I said, I don't know when I'll pick up another one of his novels, but I will in time. Now that I've spent time with writing this review, going back through my annotations, I'm thinking if I have the space this year, I'm leaning down because I'm trying to speak louder, so the drill in the background. But I think depending on how my reading goes this year, I might add another Calvino, or add a Calvino to my 2024 reading list. Now, I gave this book a 4 out of 5. I'm going to stop this review now, and I'm going to talk about something very briefly about the next few videos I have coming out on my channel. My reading has slowed down a lot this year, but I mean that in the best way possible. I am savoring so slowly what I'm reading. I'm reading a Hemingway. I'm reading Faces in the Water by Janet Frame, which is a reread. Both of them are very short novels. One is just under 200 pages. The other one's just over 200 pages. And it's taking me 2 months to read them because I'm savoring them. I'm currently also reading the third Outlander book, and the mass market edition of what I'm reading is just over 1,000 pages. I'm actually at the halfway point. It took me 4 weeks to get to the halfway point, but which for an Outlander novel is very long for me, but I'm savoring it. And right now, Voyager, which is the name of the third book, has been a comfort read to me. It's been comforting. It's just a fun novel. I enjoy being in this world with these characters, but I've slowed my reading down a lot because life is lifing. But I am not going to be running out of book content. That being said, I'm actually backtracking because my reading is slower, but I want to keep the content coming. I'm actually backtracking to my pre-YouTube days and pulling out old reviews that I think deserve videos. So I will have a little life coming up. I'm very excited. I'm going to start doing more under the radar. I started that in 2022, and people really enjoyed them, highlighting books that I don't think get enough attention because they're just not talked about for some reason. And a nonfiction, The Greek Way by Edith Hamilton, which I think is a fantastic book, one of my favorite nonfiction reads ever. So those are the upcoming reviews. With that, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. If you would like, you can also feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I get up to more bookish shenanigans. I post all of my reviews there first, and I post goofy things in the Instagram stories that have nothing to do with books. I often post pictures of bears and bear reels because I'm obsessed with bears. I know they're deadly, okay? But they're cute. And they're kind of goofy. Why are predators so cute, huh? That sounded weird. Apex predators. I'm talking about, lions and tigers and bears. I'm out. Bye.